I had everything, money and fame and attention, but was still the me I was when I was 16, who thought that if I got those things, I would feel better inside. I just felt the same. None of it worked.
Today, we are sitting down with Grammy-nominated artist, songwriter, and adventurer Mike Posner. Joining him is Alli Schaper, the visionary co-founder of SuperMush, the brand at the front edge of functional mushrooms, culture, and conscious entrepreneurship.
And I believe business is a spiritual game. Being able to find spiritual meaning in those things and use those things as kind of the canvas of my life has been very important to me.
Hi, and welcome to Prime Talks, where we connect with some of the most illustrious thinkers, innovators, artists, investors, and leaders around the world while supporting mental health in our communities. I want to remind you all that our efforts with Prime Talks are in support of bringing vital mental health resources to those that need it most. If you benefit from this conversation, please consider donating toward a myriad of innovative programs we fund to strengthen the mental health resilience of those that are in greatest need. 100% of the dollars you donate go directly to the cause. And if you haven't yet contributed, please take a moment, go to the link in the show notes and make a donation. We'd greatly appreciate your support. Allow me to now introduce my co-host, Sylvia Solit, to welcome today's guests. For those of you who may not know Sylvia is a successful entrepreneur, investor, and advisor who I have the privilege of calling a mentor, partner, and friend. Sylvia, over to you.
Today, we are sitting down with two humans who are actively rewriting the script on what it means to live awake, creative, and on purpose. Our first guest is Grammy-nominated artist, songwriter, and adventurer Mike Posner, a man who's gone from dorm room mixtapes to global hits, from stadium tours to walking across America and summiting Everest, all in service of the same question: who am I when the noise stops, and what am I really here to do? Joining him is Alli Schaper, the visionary co-founder of SuperMush, the brand at the front edge of functional mushrooms, culture, and conscious entrepreneurship. Alli has turned her own wellness and mental health journey into a mission to make nervous system regulation, creativity, and daily ritual not just accessible, but cool. In this conversation, we're going to explore the intersection of art and mystical experiences and parlay them into real world change, or how to parlay them into real world change, and how to build a life and business around what actually feels true in your body and what it looks like to choose growth over comfort when the world is watching. So settle in, take a breath, and let's drop in with Mike Posner and Alli Schaper from SuperMush. Two very different roads brought you together here: entrepreneurship and artistry. So, first, to get us started, first question: when you first met, what did you immediately recognize in each other that felt familiar, even though your lives looked so differently on the surface?
I can answer first. I love that intro. I have to steal that from you. Well, it's funny because when Mike and I met, we met at a coffee shop in Venice Beach, and the first conversation we had was about, we talked about death, our fathers passing away, and so the entry point I had into understanding who Mike was as a person is understanding how he thought about life and thought about death and thought about kind of the pursuit of greater meaning. And so I would say that was like a really strong start and foundation for our conversations. And we also, we have so much in common from, a values perspective. So the common ground, I would say, is value system alignment. And it's definitely evolved a lot over the last few years. Like, he's grown me a lot as a person. But yeah, that's what comes to mind.
Well, I love that answer. So I'm like, okay, Venice, coffee shop, talk about death. I love that combination because one of the things I'm really passionate about personally is like, how do you make consciousness an approachable subject for people? And there's no better way than to make it look super cool on the outside. So like California surfer girl in a coffee shop who it's like a Trojan horse, who's also comfortable jumping right in and talking about death, is definitely one of my favorite combinations. So I can see, Mike, how you were instantly drawn to Alli.
Yeah, she got a couple of things going for her, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
when Sylvia actually described Alli to me, I don't remember the exact words she used, but it sounded like she's like the queen of death. She hosts death dinners, and so and right out of the gate, in the first question, it's like death comes up, within the first 30 seconds. Maybe I know this is a little bit of a deviation from where we were planning to go, but like, what about death is actually most salient for you? And maybe even how it came up on a first date, because I could imagine that's pretty exciting stuff to bring up on the first go.
And to be fair, I think I brought it up because my father had recently passed away. So when Mike was like, "How are you doing in your life?" and I was like, "Well, this is what's been alive for me in the last year." And it's definitely been, a deepening passion of mine. When Sylvia and I met, Mike connected us. It was, I'm sure, from something in that realm where I had been talking about um just like a wanting to understand our mortality in a deeper way because of my experience with my dad. And so Mike told me that I needed to meet Sylvia, which has been such a beautiful relationship in my life. And so I'd say we have different relationships with it. But when I feel the most alive and connected to my life, I feel like I have a understanding that I am going to die. So there's like a lot of layers to that. But and I think in that first conversation, I don't remember exactly, but Mike has had several near-death experiences, so we were talking about that and the proximity to death. It just opens up uh, a whole world of deeper conversation. So I'm sure you would have been the love of my life regardless of that. But it was a really cool, strong start.
Well, I mean, death is an important part of marriage vows. So it's not totally crazy that death could be a connecting point between two people who then start a profound relationship with one another. Alli, are you comfortable sharing the story of your father's passing with us? I've heard it before, and it's such an impactful and beautiful story, and I know that it does actually inform who you are as an entrepreneur. So if you feel comfortable sharing it, love for our listeners to hear about your journey with death.
Yeah, I mean, my father passed away really unexpectedly, and it I think because of the unexpected nature of it and the way that I found out, I was in an airplane taking off when I found out, so I had um a unique ability to process it in a different way. Um and so I'm very grateful for the experience. It's been a little over 3 years now, but there's just been so much wisdom and lessons that's opened up for me in that. And I work in mushrooms. I work in functional mushrooms and education and policy and psychedelic mushrooms. And the first thing I thought of when my dad passed away was I was so grateful I could share that experience with him and my mom before he had passed. So his death has revealed a lot to me. And I mean, there's so much wisdom, I think, that has been opened up and also deepened my connection to my work in a different way.
And Mike, like obviously, you impressed Alli with your thoughtfulness around that, but and you've experienced profound loss yourself, and somehow that's transformed you. That's sort of really given you a depth that others appreciate. Like when you think about death and trauma, like what determines this kind of suffering that really hardens people versus the ones that deepens them? Like what's the defining difference there?
The defining difference between what we call them challenges, challenges that make somebody stronger versus make someone weaker is really simple. It's the story that we make about it. I could go for a run right now and I could twist my ankle and I could go, oh my gosh, look at all the things this is going to ruin for this week. And man, I should have been paying more attention, or I could make a different story. oh man, maybe I get to focus on some other things this week. Maybe I'm gonna make actually more progress in my writing this week. Maybe I'm gonna write a better song because I'm not gonna be running as much this week. So that's a little silly example, but the same principle applies for the bigger challenges when they come, whether that be a death of a loved one, the death of a business, the death of a goal. Challenges come with life. They're part of life. Pain is a part of life. Suffering is optional. Suffering is the mental story that we put on top of pain. It's a story about our pain. Pain comes from life. Suffering comes from our minds. So the difference between challenges that make us stronger versus ones that make us weaker is the story we have about them. And so we have to be careful about the stories we tell ourselves because we tend to believe them.
And where
Mike,
did you get?
how did you learn that?
Yeah,
Okay,
that
we're
was
about
my
to ask
question.
the question. Like, I guess that's a very deep transmission that you just shared. So curious how that came to be inside of you, so alive.
Well, it's certainly not like a distinction that I could take any credit for coming up with. I've heard 3 teachers that I could think of off the top of my head that have taught me that either live or in their books. Eckhart Tolle teaches some version of that. Jack Kornfield teaches some version of that. Tony Robbins teaches some version of that distinction. But I think, we don't really learn from books and we don't learn from podcasts. We learn from life. We learn from experience. So that's been my experience when I myself have created stories about myself that are limiting and painful. They create a limiting experience of life and a suffering filled life. For example, I used to have this story about myself. I read a book once I think it's called Attached, and it talked about the different attachment styles you have as a person in relationships. And I read this book and I go, oh my God, I have an avoidant attachment style. So I started like seeking out different therapists. Oh, I have avoidant attachment style. They go, yeah, you do. Let's talk about that and help you understand it more. All this stuff, and I worked within that framework to try to make peace with my avoidant attachment style because I told myself this story. Actually, the book told me a story, and then I believed it. It told a story that I have an avoidant attachment style, and all my relationships just reflected, somebody who had an avoidant attachment style. I didn't really have that many deep relationships. People couldn't count on me. And I thought, well, I have this thing about me. I have to sort of make peace with it and make the best of it and work with it. And I lived within that paradigm for years, probably half a decade, 5, 7 years. Let me tell you who wasn't inside that paradigm. Her.
Okay.
There was no space for someone like her to be inside of that story I was telling myself. And I can remember being at a Tony Robbins conference, which I'm a big Tony Robbins guy. He helped, I won't say he changed my life, he helped me change my life.
Mm.
And I remember a moment in the conference, I thought, this story is complete BS. I'm not avoidant. I might have some avoidant patterns that I've been acting out, but I can change any habit or pattern. And so I just let that go because it wasn't true.
Right.
And I learned new skills. I practice new things. Do sometimes those patterns or habits come up? Yeah, of course. And I go, oh, that's that old thing I used to do. If I keep doing that, she's not going to be here. So I'm going to stop doing it. Yeah, I remember. I'm not supposed to do that. I don't do that anymore. So, but it's not my identity. Does a habit come up, an emotion, a thought come up? Sure, that's not who I am. It's not. So I change the story, like my friend in Q says, change your story, change your life.
Mm-hmm.
You change your story, and magical things can happen. This is where I think all spiritual breakthrough comes from, is decoupling one's habits from one's identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody thinks, you think that the things you do are who you are. No, that you're just doing those, you know. depression, for example, I think falls into that. Depression, most of the time, is not something you have, it's something you do. So sorry, it's a long-winded answer, but
No, it's
No,
great.
no. I was just like, wow, I'm gonna let Mo take the next question because I would go down a spiritual rabbit hole right now. And
Just before we go down that rabbit hole, we will come back there, Sylvia. I actually do want to just double click on the identity piece because obviously it's something you thought about. Even you cared about how you were sort of identified, whether it was by a psychologist or anybody else. But when you today in this more evolved view, what does identity actually mean to you, and how has that identity evolved over through your impressive career?
this for me or Allie?
Well, either really, but Mike, you picked up the identity piece, so
Okay. Right now, it's March 17th, 2026. The way I would answer that question is identity is something to hold very loosely. At one point, my identity was I was a JV basketball player, in high school. I no longer have that identity. So identity obviously morphs and changes over time, but I think it's sort of a very thin layer on the surface of who we actually are, which is I think sort of unbounded and mystical and mysterious in nature, and I'm learning to rest more in that place behind my identity. In fact, most of the conflicts that, at least my side of the conflicts that I have in my relationship with my love, is if I'm trying to defend some picture of how I want her to see me. If I want her to see me in a certain way, and I think she's seeing me, I'm worried that she sees me as not that cool of a person or good of a guy, then if I start trying to defend that picture that I want to, my ego wants to instill in her mind, that creates conflict.
yeah.
When I let go of that picture, I let go of that identity, there's nothing to defend. That creates peace in our relationship.
no, Mike, I feel like being able to be that fluid and that awake around identity lends itself extremely well to the life of an artist, which I would consider you to be an artist. Alli, what I'm curious about is how does that work as the life in the life of a CEO of a company? Like, how do you work with your own, spirituality and awakening around your identity when you're leading a company?
Yeah, I'm still evolving my answer to that, but I would say, well, and there's parts, I think I might have shared this with you, Sylvia, before, but there's parts of being with Mike that are confronting to me because he is an artist and he follows his art fully, and there's something really admirable about that. We always joke about, art before laundry. And this is like a roundabout way to answer your question, but Mike is like art before laundry. And I'm like laundry before art all day, all day, literally, figuratively. And and I've evolved that for sure. But I would say my journey with being a founder and running a company and doing a lot of things that are a little bit more in my masculine, so to speak, operations and logistics and administrative stuff, being able to find spiritual meaning in those things and use those things as kind of the canvas of my life and not almost like stopping identifying them as laundry, like doing them in a more artful way has been very important to me. And I believe business is a spiritual game, like actually when I find myself to be the most effective in my work, I believe that, we're building a business that's like the mycelium network that operates like how, mycelium operates in its underground networks. where if I just pause and I look at my phone and I figure out who do I need to call to do this thing, it's more effective than me just like responding to whatever my technology is telling me to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's aspirational state for me, to be in that more of the time. And, when I think about building a conscious business, which is what a lot of our conversations have been around, that still is kind of new paradigm, because the current system is not necessarily set up for, consciousness or decisions that are better for the planet versus better for your P&L to be the front-facing decision levers. And so I feel like the more that I surround myself with people who also view business as a spiritual game, it actually becomes easier to play the game in that way.
You could definitely count on Mo and I to be you're a good conversationalist in terms of business being a spiritual game. I think we're both exploring those same questions as you are. And I would love to hear is what's the journey been with SuperMush? Because again, a lot of our listeners are family offices and they actively invest in consumer product companies. So I think it'll be interesting for them to hear the journey from ideation. Where did this idea come from? And how did you go from ideation to being on the shelves of Target? And what's next for SuperMush?
Yeah, so I started the business with my co-founder Brian, who I always say that I kind of stalked him into starting a mushroom company with me, because he's an ex-tech founder, sold a tech company, and mushrooms at that point in my life, this was around, 20, almost like 2016, 17, I started taking functional mushrooms, and really revolutionary for my physical health. It's a bit of a longer story, but I was a patient of the Western medical system for a very long time and had been prescribed upwards of 8 to 10 different pharmaceutical medications. And so I discovered mushrooms. I discovered psychedelic mushrooms. I became fascinated with all things fungi, which is the connective tissue.
Can we just pause here and can you give us a description of what's the difference between a functional and a psychedelic mushroom so we know what you're talking about when you talk about functional mushrooms and SuperMush?
Yeah, so functional mushrooms are superfood adaptogenic mushrooms that are fully legal. You can find them in your grocery store. These are the most common ones that people will recognize are lion's mane, cordyceps, reishi mushrooms, turkey tail. And these are mushrooms that have a functional benefit beyond just nutritional value versus, a portobello mushroom. It's a mushroom, but it's not a functional mushroom that has like a superpower benefit to your body. And these are, mushrooms that have been used for thousands of years in Chinese medicine. So very much ancient wisdom. And then psychedelic mushrooms are, the most common one people recognize, the psilocybin mushrooms. And those are psychoactive and produce a hallucinogenic effect.
Thank you.
Yeah. So really, I mean, the journey was starting as I met Brian after having this profound change with mushrooms in my own life. And I read his book. He had just sold his company, and I read his book about his journey to, starting a company when he was 19 years old and raising from Mark Benioff and Tim Draper and all the Silicon Valley guys who funded his first tech company, and the way that he thought about business and culture and marketing and kind of everything in between, lifestyle design being a really important part of that. And I was just like, this guy is amazing. He's the perfect co-founder for me. And so I like to say that I stalked him into starting a mushroom company with me. And then during COVID, he was traveling the world, writing his second book about flow state, going to the best places in the world for a particular sport, because he's a huge action sports guy. And COVID shut the world down. He was stuck in his parents' bedroom, went back to the United States, and I was like, perfect. This is a perfect opportunity to convince him to start this mushroom company with me. So that was really the genesis of it. And we started working on it in 2020. We launched it a little over 4 years ago. And since then, we've raised from 130 investors. We've raised around $7 million. And our most, I would say, exciting thing over the last year and a half is that we launched in Target, which is a very exciting milestone for our brand to get into with 3 products. And, there's a lot that's happened between then and now. But we're at this very exciting inflection point where mushrooms are now becoming way less stigmatized, more mainstream, both in functional mushrooms and in psychedelics. And I would say I'm so excited because I really believe that functional mushrooms are a way for people to understand the world of fungi. And I think humans need to be more like them. So I'm excited about SuperMush as a vehicle to really spread, fun, color, consciousness. And we focus a lot on community in addition to our products. So that's been like a very high level of the journey.
It's a great story. Maybe I could just weave a couple of the things that you said together, and I'd love to go a little deeper on two topics. One is obviously, Alli, you mentioned that to you, business is ultimately like a spiritual game, and Mike, you talked a little bit about the fact that you're trying to keep your identity loose, or hold it loosely, which I think is brilliant. And I think the reason why it's relevant to a lot of our listeners is, I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs have sold their business and are sort of find themselves in this weird precarious place, thinking they've kind of, reached the top of the mountain and then find themselves feeling somewhat empty. And a lot of them struggling with identity because their identity was wealth creator, their identity was business leader, their identity was the guy that generates piles of cash, whatever. So the question I'm actually really curious about, and just to go deeper on that, the spiritual game of business, like what's the game that you're actually playing? Like, and when did you realize that the game that you may have been playing in the past is not the game that matters? If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, what an amazing tool to be able to offer people, because I think, and I'll share a story because to your question, Mo, I think I was given a gift in the early start of my entrepreneurial career, so to speak, because I got to meet so many people that had arrived at that journey of where I thought I wanted to go, where they were, to just put it bluntly, like super wealthy but spiritually bankrupt, and they were kind of foreshadowing of like all the things that I didn't want, and I remember when I was first starting my first business, I was in New York, and I laugh about this because it's a crazy statistic, but I went on 356 coffee dates in 1 year, and I met all of the most amazing people that I could possibly meet, talking to them about business, and I met a lot of founders and entrepreneurs and people that had kind of paved the path of where I thought I wanted to go. And my number one takeaway from that year, even though I wanted it to be, here's how to make a lot of money and build a big business and make a big impact, it was more that if you don't prioritize community along the way to build whatever you're building, that you kind of end up with no one to invite to the party. And I met a lot of these people that felt so isolated in their journey. And so that was like an early lesson for me. And so I very much prioritized, you know, community and relationships and how to be kind of fulfilled in the now versus delaying that gratification and then having an identity crisis at the end of it. And that's still a journey that I'm on because I definitely I get stuck in that a lot. Um, yeah, but I would say, like what game am I actually playing? I'm like, oh well, I'm trying to play the game of like being present now and not having to, sell my company or make a lot of money to be happy and fulfilled. And I think that can be applied to everything in life. And you talked about my dad at the beginning, but one of the biggest lessons that I learned from his passing is, he was scheduled to retire 5 days before he passed away. And that was kind of the destination that he was going towards and never ended up making it there. And so there's a healthy tension between, you know, acting like every day is your last day versus like really realizing that we don't actually know what's coming. The world is changing very fast. I'm seeing so many businesses change so fast with AI, and I think all we can really do is play the game of today, as well as possible. Um, and so, yeah, that's like there's more to it, I think, than that, but that's like the current inquiry I'm in, or at least what comes up when you ask.
Great. And Mike, what comes up for you?
What was the question?
Yeah.
How do you? It's good.
Talk about presence. I love it. It's it was right there for you, Alli, the whole time. Yeah, the question is, what 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 game are you playing today, or do you think you're playing, and how did that differ from the game that maybe you thought you were playing at other points in time in your life?
Yeah, I think Allie covered it pretty well, but recognizing that pretty much everything on the external is a game. So games I'm playing, I'm writing a book right now. I'm released a new song 2 weeks ago and working on the next one. And I play concerts, right? But they're all games. And there's no universal rule. Like, there's a law of gravity, I guess that the physicists have found. There's no physical law that says however well I'm playing those games or winning those games or losing those games has to affect the weather on the inside of me. So the internal game is the main game. I believe in God. So the macro game I'm playing, the primordial game I guess I play is loving God with my heart, my soul, my mind. My purpose is to be a blessing, love people, have a good time sharing the gifts God has given me. And then all the other goals are just sort of fun underneath that. I believe that the best way to love God is to be present in this moment, not be obsessively thinking about oneself, and to love other people. So that's sort of the like macro game I try to play. I got a lot of big goals and other things. Some of them are financial, some are artistic, some of them are health wise. But I'm playing that main game as I play those. That's the game. That Alli said it. It's like, how present can you be while you're running your business? While something goes wrong in your business? While something goes wrong in a relationship? While someone treats you in a way you think isn't right? Can you stay present? Can you still have space for God in your life in those moments? That's to me like the macro game. And I very much resonate with some of the things you shared about your audience. Several years ago, I found myself basically with everything. I had the like number one dream job, pop star, go on stage, people love you, they scream for you, and money. I had sold a portion of my catalog, big pop songs. So I had more money than I ever dreamed I would have, fame, and somehow I realized I had nothing. And, to quote Tony Robbins again, one of my favorite teachers, he said, achievement without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. Achievement without fulfillment is ultimate failure. So this is the fun part, because achievement is a science. Just like Alli was talking about on those dates, there's enough podcasts out there, and certain principles, if you embody them, and books you can read, like if you do these steps and you don't give up long enough, you'll be successful. It's science. Fulfillment is an art. Fulfillment's an art. That has to be arrived at by yourself. And what I do know, and I hope this is helpful to any of those people listening to this, is we all need a purpose, a compelling vision of the future, combined with the ability to be present now. Joy is actually an equation if you have these two things: a compelling vision of the future plus the ability to be present now. That equals joy. So after you reach this one big goal, you sell this company, identity shifts, right? All these things. Great. Okay, so what's the vision of the future that you actually want?
How do you define life purpose? Like, could you, if somebody said to you, Alli, Mike, what's your life purpose? Would you be able to answer that question?
We would, because we know what it is for us. But it's more important that people can, I can darn near say yours, probably not word for word, but she could probably say mine. I said mine earlier. My purpose is to be a blessing, love people, and have a ball sharing the gifts God has given me. Alli's is to make the world more conscious, colorful,
Fun,
fun,
connected.
connected. So
Yeah.
there's a cheat sheet to get to this though. It's people a lot of times, myself included, we go around measuring how life is not living up to our expectations of life. Flip it. If ask what life is expecting out of you. Are you measuring up to what life expects out of you? So purpose doesn't always have to be this wild overarching thing. It can just be what life or reality, or like I said, I believe in God, expects from you, is calling from you right now. It could be as simple as holding your wife's hand in this moment. That could be your purpose in this moment, or something larger, overarching. But all of us have a purpose, and it's all unique. We have to say, first, this is my first question if I work with somebody. Do you want to live? Most people say yes. Okay, then why? Why? And that why is it might be your purpose. It might be for somebody else, but it might be a stepping stone to your purpose. But if you could, what would really make life worth living? What would that look like to you? We get so caught up on measuring why life is not what we want it to be. But what do you actually want? That give you a compelling vision of your future. And can you be okay right now? Can you combine those two things? Joy equals the ability to be present with a vision of the future.
And how do you're surrounded by people that seem to be motivated, driven, if not obsessed with other scoreboards, and which are not the scoreboards that you just articulated. And again, Mike, in your world, it may be all of the people that facilitate your musical career or are supported by your musical career, or it may be um, y- peers, other performers, artists, and so on and so forth. And Alli, in your context, it may be partners, investors, what have you, even vendors or buyers or whatever it may be. Um, how do you resist I don't want to call it superficiality, but the surface level issues that constantly percolate because again, that's driving the score on somebody else's scoreboard. I don't know if you're following with what I'm saying, but how do you stay centered to these truths, notwithstanding that most of the world around you isn't necessarily at this level of consciousness?
AKA, like, how do you open up Instagram and look at it without wanting to buy something?
Yeah,
Like, how do you,
or like not even paying attention to how many views you
how do you
get.
keep the center?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely selling shit on Instagram, so just caveat there.
No, just discount, except for SuperMush. We're all buying SuperMush.
Everything else. No, I mean, and it is. It's like it's so funny, right? Because like we're talking about consciousness and all the thing, and it's like I sell stuff on the internet. Like that's like part of what we do, and I also think that the intention behind everything is everything, right? Like if your intention is to do that so that you can make a lot of money and like do bad things with it, like arguably not a great path, but the same action can be backed with a different intention and have a completely different, personal impact and impact on the world. And so I constantly find myself like I'm in the business of fundraising. So I'm constantly, enrolling people in my vision. And, I'm constantly finding myself, uh, I guess in the gray zone of trying to, when you're in a conversation and you want to sound smart in front of someone versus say like what's really on your heart.
Yeah.
And I'm like that distinction. Yeah. And I think for a lot of my younger years, including some moments now, like I sometimes will still get caught in wanting people to like me or be impressed with me or whatever it is. And I actually find like the most resonance with finding the right people, whether it's to invest in my business or partner with us when I'm sharing just what's true. And And it can be what's true about our, the logistics of our business. It doesn't have to be a deep spiritual concept, but I just think as honest as possible, as much as possible. And, like we had an employee quit yesterday and it's like, oh, that's stressful. And the natural inclination is to like, oh, okay, blame and why is it? But I'm like, actually, like it's all going to be completely fine. And I think the pattern that I've been the most proud of is like, how can I be in a more peaceful state when things go wrong as more of the time? That feels, the first time, like our business, it's like going through startup life, the amount of times it's been like, our bank account's great, our bank account's out of money, it's just like this constant yo-yo effect. And actually like your day-to-day life, doesn't change that much. But what happens is when when a stressful thing happens in your business, your mind tells the story of like, we're going to go bankrupt. I'm going to have no money. I'm going to have him moving with my, whatever. You tell this like crazy story. And over the years, I'm like, okay, the actual growth for me is like how to be a better leader and just do the action that's needed in the moment, not be complacent and just be like, oh, God will take care of it. Like really show up for that moment, but try to maintain a sense of agency over my nervous system because I'm not being chased by a tiger. So for me, I don't think that answered your question at
I
all.
chase you like a tiger.
Mike will chase me like a tiger. Just like just more peace of mind while you're going through things that feel artificially stressful. Like one of my really good friends always tells me is like things never minimize. You just expand your capacity to hold more and feel like you're in a more peaceful state. So I've been thinking a lot about that with capacity because my vision of what we want to do with our business is it gets bigger and bigger, and so does my capacity to hold that vision. Like the vision can't get bigger while you're still staying small. It'll just implode.
I love that because I struggle often with overwhelm or feeling too busy. And I used to think it was a problem and I would be able to conquer it. And then I began to realize recently, no, this is just me needing to expand my nervous system's capacity as things scale.
Mm.
And so much of it comes down to that kind of sovereign, profound relationship in your own nervous system regulation, right? Which I think is a really, really important part of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I guess the question it just comes back to, and maybe Mike, this is for you, is like when your purpose sort of stands in not like total opposition to some of the really daily blocking and tackling objectives that you have of running a business, but like you recently redid a song, right? I actually, my kids, I mentioned this conversation and they started singing your song in the kitchen. So
That's so cute.
it was very cute, actually. Yeah, and
Did they know? But they didn't know about the rewrite.
They didn't know what the rewrite. Sylvia then tells me about the rewrite.
You're going to be such a cool dad because now you can bring them home the rewrite.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna try to link the rewrite if there's a way to do that, but in the show notes. But the Mike, like whether there's the art of the rewrite, and I don't know the details of it, but you obviously that felt more aligned, that felt more soulful. Like, but there's obviously this pressure that must come from somewhere just to sell more, get more clicks, get more likes, get whatever it is. And that drive towards popularity doesn't always comport or perfectly align with the drive towards what's true or what feels most authentic. So how do you manage that tension? That's really what I'd be curious about.
It's the same tools. Sylvia just talked about having sovereignty over your own nervous system. What Alli just spoke about, having capacity to hold more. When you develop more of that space, then you can have space to say no to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, I just got offered a show in Vegas, and my agent said we do this show, and if it goes well, they'll offer you a residency. I said, I don't know how I feel about that because I don't drink. And he goes, well, maybe we'll be able to like sort of make it your own. Maybe when you play it, they can have some non-alcoholic stuff on the menu, etc. He goes, but first we have to go do like a tester show. So I went and did the tester show, and Alli was there. I'm like on stage, and they got these girls with the out and they put them on like a thing, and they literally like bring a billboard that says like bottles for X dollars and bring it like across the stage in front of me like this across the stage, right? And these girls, God bless you, they're like, and, and I'm like, I was like, I can't, that doesn't feel right to me. And so it's like during the show, I look at my age, I'm like, stop that. Make that stop happening. So then he came back to me this year, like, hey, they want to offer you some at Vegas. I said, I could do, listen, I don't want to just preach to people who already believe or, already have access to what I bring, what my gift is. So I'm not above playing a show in Vegas or playing somewhere where alcohol is served. But I said, that feels like that's too much, it's too much. And I said, you got to ask them if when I play there, they can't bring the thing in front of the stage, the bottles parade in front of the stage. And he asked, and they said no. So I said no.
Alignment.
And maybe 10 years ago, maybe my agent said, hey, this could lead to a bigger thing and this, and I could be convinced. Now it's not worth it to me.
Right.
It's not worth it to me. I think a big key is our relationship. I bring stuff to her. I'll talk, hey, let me get your advice on this, and because she's not in, her paycheck doesn't rest on, whether I do that show or not. She could give me some really unbiased advice. It's often very helpful. And I'll have to say, like, hey, literally it sounds corny, but I'm like, Jesus says this in the Bible. Like, what do you think is not the right decision for our bank account, but what do you think the right decision is? Like by God.
Mm-hmm.
And so we try to think about stuff in that way, and pitch it to Alli. She'll catch and pitch back, and knowing that our love is her first place. That we both also have a lot of rituals, meditation, taking care of our bodies. That I find also creates a lot of space. If you're tired, exhausted, it's harder to make these kind of judgment calls than if you're in a beautiful state. So we both care a lot about our state. And that's how you can kind of stay true to yourself, is create more of that space.
Do you feel like God was a big part of what kept you going as you walked all the way across the country? And do you have another walk in you? Something that we're going to hear about next?
And maybe tell the story for the listeners that don't know that you walk 3,000 miles across America. Like, maybe just give a little bit of a snippet as to like what caused that, what brought that about, a little bit about your experience, and what did that reveal for you?
Sure. I mean, I think your listeners, from what you describe, will understand exactly why I was on that walk. I had everything, but it felt like I had nothing. I mean, I had money and fame and attention from the opposite sex, but I was still the me I was when I was 16, who thought that if I got those things, I would feel better inside. I just felt the same. None of it worked. So I basically tried everything. My father died. Some of my peers had died. I'd even tried, no offense, I know, like, I'm a fan of it in certain ways, but even some psychedelic stuff. I'd done an ayahuasca journey. It just made me want to kill myself. Like, I was out of options. And so I knew something in my life had to change. And I think I didn't have the language for it at the time, but I think I was so attached to my ego and my story, I intuitively knew I needed to do something to sort of like shake the Etch-a-Sketch. Like, what's the opposite of what I should do right now? I'm supposed to like make another album and go on tour. Like, what if I just grow a beard and walk across the US?
Yeah.
And that was my way of sort of, I guess, it was almost a teenage way of like asserting some sovereignty over my own experience. But aversion is just like another form of attachment, So I had some aversion to doing the merry-go-round of promoting another album and shaking all the radio station guys' hands with this big fake smile on my face and trying to get 12-year-olds to listen to my song, and I had some aversion to that, so I did the opposite. But aversion, when you do the opposite, it's actually not freedom, it's just another form of attachment. Anyways, that's why I went on that journey. I learned a lot on that journey. I almost died on that journey. I found I think I woke up sort of like an inner warrior inside myself. I found a toughness in myself. But ultimately it didn't bring me fulfillment. That came later. I forgot the other parts of your questions. My
Do
apologies.
you have another walk in you?
There was another one though.
I mean,
It was like a three-headed question.
yeah, sure. Sorry, that's like a total no-go in any interview because,
No,
like,
no, it's not. I just got so immersed in my own answer.
I think I think the key was like what that revealed for you, and perhaps you've answered that in a way. And is there something that you think you wouldn't have learned without having that space? I mean, you talk about space; it's a
Oh,
common
I
theme.
remember the first part now.
Yeah, what was it?
It was, did you think God helped you complete your walk? That was the other one.
Yeah, you got it.
I think God gave me everything in my life. I think God gave me this body. I think God gave me my life itself. I think I'm a pretty good guy. I work hard. I've improved a lot over the years. But if I look at what I have in my life, it's not really commensurate. It's way better than what I deserve. It's just the amount of joy I have that I get to be with her, the job I get to do, the health. I mean, it. I just I'm really grateful to to yeah. I think that all comes from God, and I'm really grateful that God gave me this. We do work every so often with unhoused population. Um, and a couple months ago, we were sitting with a gentleman, and I remember just leaving. We talked to him for a while, and I remember just leaving that conversation like, man, if I could just have his life for sure. If I was born to his parents at that time, like I would be right there on that street corner, and I just feel really grateful. I feel really grateful.
Wow.
To have this house, to have a house at all, to have clean water and food. I mean, we're very blessed for sure.
Yeah. It's a superpower. I mean, it's a superpower, and I think it fuels your conviction. It fuels your faith. I think it also fuels a lot of the energy, the positive energy that you put out in the world. It's a remarkable thing, right? Like when you just, as you said, as you say, we're like, what does the world expect of me, and what does the universe expect of me? That's better instead of what I expect. Your expectations actually lower, and your blessing increases. It's a wonderful way to navigate it. Um, and just, I mean, I know we're sort of wrapping up here. Maybe just, I think, and maybe I could two-part this question. It's, everybody that's listening to this is, you know, benefiting from some measure of either privilege or opportunity, whether by virtue of birthright or by virtue of what they've created for themselves. And as you likely agree, obviously given by God, universe, whatever. Um, what would you say to somebody who has almost every advantage and still searching for meaning? How could they make a step closer to where you are? How could they take a step closer to your level of fulfillment and joy? Um, you talked a little bit about it, but any concrete advice that you might be able to offer? And again, that goes for Ellie. You're going to say, is that to me or to Mike? Both of you. Would love to get your thoughts on both of those. And the only other frame I would add is, what would you say to a younger version of yourself if you were talking to them? That could also help, um, before the success, before the pain, before the growth, whatever it would be.
Yeah, again, every time I'm asked a question like in that realm, I'm always like really humbled, like within the hours afterwards, where like I have some spiritual answer that like I figured it out and like I just like behave like a 16-year-old, and then I'm like shit. So I'm
To be on high alert.
gonna be on a high alert, or just answer from like a a humble place. I mean, what brings me I'll just answer from like what brings me the most joy on a day-to-day experience of life is my relationships. And so if I am in a shitty mood, I try to make a practice of like sending a quick voice note to 10 people and tell them I love them and why. And it tends to get me out of the experience of myself. Because one of my favorite quotes or lines, I think it's from Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, where he talks about depression is the over introspection of oneself. So when I'm in
For sure.
suffering, I'm just thinking about myself a lot. And the same exact circumstances could be happening, but if I'm serving other people or my relationship or whatever in a way that I'm just expanded outside my own, you know, basically when I forget that I'm like the character in my own life and I just like get sucked into the movie. Um, so yeah, that feels like my answer.
I love that. I'm gonna borrow that. If I'm feeling like I'm in a funk, I'm gonna start to leave loving voice messages. That's such
Just
a
quick ones. It can
beautiful
be quick
practice.
hits,
Love it.
quick hits.
Yep.
That's amazing. Wow. Mike, anything that you would close on?
Well, yeah, first of all, I want to reject part of the presupposition of the question, which is how people can reach something. Well, whatever I have, don't try to be like me. I'm so flawed and imperfect, and building the ship as I sail. I figured out how to be better than I used to be, so I can say that. And I figured out how to change my emotional set point, which my baseline default used to be life-suckingly depressed, and my baseline now is joy, faith, and love. Not saying I stay there all the time. I go higher, but any human can do that. So what I would say to someone who maybe is like listening with a big pile of money, but not necessarily feeling as fulfilled and happy as you deserve, because you can have both. You can have success in the external world and success in the internal world. And the pain that one actually feels, I think, is actually the chasm between who you're allowing yourself to be and who you really are. The farther that chasm, the greater the suffering. And so what I would say to somebody is, wake up. Wake up. This is your life. This is your life. You're not some little bundle of heart, organ, and blood getting blown around by the whims of macroeconomics and what happens to you. You're not the manager of your circumstances. You're not the solver of a bunch of problems. You're the creator of your life. And you need to take sovereignty over who you are, your emotional states. You are the creator of your life. And we need you. We need you to wake up. So I know very much what it's like to be living underneath a cloud of depression and sort of not really know how to get out of it, but there's a way out of it. There's a way out of it. And I want to end with a story. A few months ago, is it right before your birthday, Allie? I was in a soup kitchen, and partly like I'm telling you stories. Oh yeah, you like, you're serving the poor or whatever. It's not to sound cool. I'm really there to do what Allie just talked about. I get wrapped up in myself, and if I think I go. So if I start serving others, it get me out of my own story. And this particular week, I was all up in my own story, and I was feeling tired, exhausted from a week of playing guitar for people and, and making them smile and being paid to walk on stages. Boo-hoo, poor me. And I'm like exhausted in this soup kitchen, and the job I was given at the soup kitchen that day was to greet the people when they came in and ask if they need help carrying their trays. Imagine like a buffet line, like a school cafeteria. They get food and then they sit down. So these unhoused people are coming in, and also, as my job, they weren't allowed to get seconds. Okay, and the soup kitchen said you gotta be firm. Okay, we only have enough to serve everybody one meal. People can't have 2, 3. So part of my job was to make sure people only get one that day. You get assigned a job, right? So I'm doing my job, and I'm smiling at people, giving them their tray, helping them if they need help. And then I notice this one man, he takes his tray, he gets his food, he eats it pretty fast. And then I'm noticing him come back towards the line. I go, uh-oh, I'm gonna have to lay the law down on this man. And imagine this guy's probably in his late 40s, early 50s, soft face. He gets back in the line, and I'm just about to stop him. And right before I put my hand out and tell him, no seconds, he sticks his head into the kitchen and he goes, hey, I just want to tell everybody here, volunteering, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. It really means a lot. Really made a difference for me today. Thank you. And he put his hands over his heart like this, and he left. He had something that I didn't have that day. That was enough. If you want to feel more joy, Alli said it, feel more gratitude. Before Jesus did every miracle, he prayed before he multiplied the fish and the bread. You know that story? He prayed and he gave thanks for it. So people get tripped up on, oh, he did miracles, he's the Son of God. I think that one of the lessons, maybe there's many lessons in that parable, is if you want to feel joy, you got to be grateful. He didn't do a miracle before he gave thanks. So find 10 things you'd be grateful for. Like Alli, find 10 people she's grateful for. You'll be amazed. I think a lot of people could stop taking their antidepressants. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. Don't listen to my medical advice, but I think gratitude is a hell of a drug.
Yeah. Wow.
Drop the mic.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. What an amazing, amazing closing to this conversation. I mean, you guys are incredible. The story just brought me to tears. Really, thank you.
So hopefully we'll be able to share in the show notes both the remake of I Took a Pill in Ibiza, and also a connection to SuperMush for anyone who would like to be on the investor journey with Alli and SuperMush. We would be more than happy to connect.
It's a fun
you.
journey, guys.
It's
Fun
It's a real
journey.
fun journey.
Oh my God, it sounds like a blast. It sounds like a blast. Yeah. No, but really, truly, thank you for taking time out of your insanely busy schedule to join us, and not just your sharing your story, but your insights, your honesty, and your generosity. And it's really remarkable. I mean, this project, this podcast is a project of our charitable foundation, which is in support of mental health initiatives. And so, for anybody that's actually listening to the podcast, we certainly encourage them to consider paying it forward with a donation towards those struggling with mental health challenges to, achieve that peace of mind that so many seek. And like your words couldn't have been more spot on for that. So really, with every grateful bone in my body, Mike, Alli, thank you so much for doing this. And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for joining us for this one.
Thank you guys so much.